My players have begun their descent into Orvald's tower. They've vacated the rooftop and entered the second chamber. With a few wisdom checks, they all resist the beckoning call of the Well of Souls, and then turn to me for the GM turn. I look around, reduce the timer, and pass the spotlight back to the players. That's it. My entire turn was spent reducing the timer, and it only took a few seconds. But why would I do that? Why not spend a minute, 2 minutes, or even 30 minutes taking my turn and setting up things for the next round? It's because for me, the real meat of any adventure is what the players do, and I want to keep the focus on them as much as possible. That desire has led me to think a lot on how to speed up my game, and I want to share with you the few adjustments that have had the best results. Starting with when I describe things. When I first started GMing, I saved a lot of my descriptions and responses for my turn. Everyone would take their action, and then I would react to the party as a whole. That way I could see what everyone was doing and then take all of those details into account as I described what happened next. I would describe what the timer was doing, what the enemies were doing, how the scenes were changing, etc., and I'd end up rambling for quite a while, which usually meant I was missing key details. It felt like I was being efficient, but I really wasn't. Instead, what I do now is limit the amount of description on my turn and add small details as each player takes their action, spreading the full description over the entire round. For example, in this round, green dashes to the stairs and orange investigates the well, while blue and yellow loot the body. I tell green about the shaking of the tower and how the maelstrom outside is building. They sense something is about to happen, referring to the timer. Orange gets more details about the Well of Souls and how there seems to be something churning and rising up towards him. Blue and yellow get a description of an enemy they faced earlier and a roll on the loot tables. These details flush out the scene as my players take their actions, rather than waiting to get an info dump from me after they've all moved. This alone saves me a ton of time, plus all the players hear these details as they are happening, which might prompt more questions and more details they're interested in. But what about all the stuff happening in the scene, all the moving pieces? Scenes can get pretty complicated as the environment changes, enemies attack, timers go off, and we deal with the general chaos of adventure. This is where keeping things simple is key. Simplifying my scenes has been another great way I've found to reduce the amount of time my GM turns take. In my prep, I think about all the moving pieces I would have to keep track of and find ways to limit it to 3 to 5 things at most per round. So say we're at the bottom of the Dune Vault, and the players are surrounded by a dozen cultists, the timer is ticking down, rocks are falling from the ceiling, tentacles are writhing about, and an Ogdru priest is chanting something horrifying. That's a lot going on, so how can I simplify it? Well, instead of having 12 individual cultists, I could have 2 groups of cultists and up the damage die. The rocks might only come into play every other round, and I limit it to a simple dex save. The tentacles don't even engage with the players unless provoked, and the Ogdru priest is having a passive effect on the scene, raising the target until he's confronted directly. Add in the timer, and that's only 5 things that I have to track, which I can move through pretty quickly. A simple scene doesn't have to be devoid of action and suspense. ICRPG provides a lot of levers to pull, but that doesn't mean you have to pull them all at once or every round, which can save you time. The final thing that really helped shorten my turns as a GM was decisiveness. Especially when it came to enemy attacks or in combat, I want to know immediately what each enemy is going to do so I could get to rolling and move on. After trying out different techniques, I'm really grateful I found my answer in Viking Death Squad in the form of tactic rolls. It's a really simple concept of giving each enemy type a small roll table with a list of all their actions on it. The table is weighted so the most common actions appear more often, and the more unique actions come up less. If I'm stuck thinking about what an enemy might do, all I have to do is roll and the dice decide for me. No more guessing or contemplating about how a monster might use its actions. Additionally, you're not just limited to simple actions. Like monster AIs, you can include other things into these tables to inform what the monsters might do. Roll a 1 and it will move, then attack. Roll a 2 and it will attack and then move. Roll a 3 and it will target the spellcaster or go aggro on the biggest hitter. These results shouldn't be complicated, but the dice can decisively declare what might happen this turn, and you can skip straight to rolling against the player's defense. Now I know these ideas are not the most groundbreaking, but they've solved my problem. As a GM, I want my turns to be fast, and I don't think we should be afraid of taking short turns. We should be striving to take only the time we need and then giving the rest back to the players. And like any good game, this pattern will ebb and flow. Some GM turns will be more complex and take longer, but that shouldn't be every turn, and not every turn should be as simple as ticking down a timer. Either way, there's just something about a short GM turn that makes me smile.